Welcome to the next episode of the Iowa Girls Wrestling Stories podcast, now partnered with Chain Wrestling. And today's featured guest is an old friend of mine, Rachel Waters. Actually, somebody was already wrestling when I started coaching girls. And honestly, Rachel, the first time I saw you, I had no idea who you were. It was at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and the conflict at Carver. That was an awesome meet. So, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. That
Awesome.
that meet didn't go very well for me though.
I'm trying to remember which year that was. I think you were that would have been like between God, I don't even years go by for it so fast. Keegan's between her freshman and sophomore year, I believe. No, actually it was before her freshman year. So that would have been your senior year that year.
So 2015 or 16, I
Probably
believe.
somewhere in there.
Ish.
Somewhere in there. I don't know. But I ran into you the other day at a pretty cool tournament, the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union Girls State Wrestling Tournament. And your team did quite well. You're at West Liberty now. How is everything going at West Liberty?
Things are great. I absolutely love West Liberty. It's the community, the people. It's awesome that I came from a wrestling community and a small town wrestling community, and
Yeah.
I found one somewhere else in the state too. It has a special place in my heart. I really do love where I'm at now.
Yeah, it's I think everything's great with West Liberty except for maybe you got to put up with Lars a little bit. You ever run into Lars?
Yeah, he actually donated, or he Jim Brown, he contacted him and got a bunch of
Oh,
shoes donated for our junior high program. So
very
pretty
nice.
awesome.
So, you're helping both the high school and the middle school program, and you had mentioned that you kind of like the middle school coach.
Mhm.
So, what's all the coaching situation at West Liberty?
Yeah, so I've helped out with the high school just as I could. My fiance has been a teacher at West Liberty for quite a few years now. We met when I was at Hawkeye Wrestling Club, and so I'd go help out with the high school and junior high like when I could, if I could. Now I teach there, so I last year I was junior high head coach, and then this year I decided to help out assisting the high school program this year.
Yeah, that was, and you had quite a showing. You guys placed fifth behind East Buck, Mount Vernon, Osage, and Decorah, which in girls wrestling, that's some pretty good company to be in. But you had three place winners. Um,
Yeah.
how was that? I mean, that's pretty awesome. Three place winners in that tournament. That was a tough, crazy tournament. What were some of your thoughts on basically the girls tournament this year?
It, I honestly, every time, like, I feel like it still hasn't hit me. I know it's been sanctioned for a couple of years now. And I was there when they sanctioned it, and but every single year when I go back, it hits me again. I'm like, wow, like I'm seeing coaches that coached against me at other schools when I was in high school when I was wrestling boys,
Uh-huh.
and I'm seeing all, the singlets and the all the gear from all the schools across the state of Iowa, and I'm like, this is great. I don't know. It's crazy. It's awesome. It's crazy that I feel like we were kind of there's so many people, so many fans. You have somebody pin somebody on a mat and like an entire sea of green stands up. It feels this I don't know if I want to compare it to boys, but like it feels just like boys state when I was there and cheering on teammates. It's like, wow, we did this thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you were a big part of that. Um, my take on it, and we can talk as coaches because we're both there. Um, Man, the place is packed and it sells out, which I don't think is a bad problem to have. But I'm not a huge fan of Wells Fargo, and I'm of the Vets Auditorium age. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever got to attend a state tournament at Vets, but it was absolutely nuts and loud and crazy. I feel like Corville's kind of has that feel. And the thing I don't like about Vets is I feel removed from the situation and we're not on top of it. But what do you think? Do we need to leave Coralville behind, or do we need to find a bigger venue? Do you like what we're doing?
I don't know. As a coach, like minor things, obviously, I don't want to be a complainer,
Oh
but
no, you don't. No, I'm just saying.
yeah.
Maybe we'll find some critiques that help.
Well, I think like classes, I'm really glad we split into two classes. I don't necessarily love how that affected my athletes being a 1A school where we had,
Hmm.
17 teams at our regional.
Yep.
And you gotta get one or two. Like I watched a lot of good wrestlers not qualify for state this year,
Yeah.
which so that partly hurts my heart a little bit. So my thoughts are, if we get to a point where we have three classes like boys, extreme could still work if you have
Yep.
the sessions. I mean, you'd have to do it for more days in a row, but like you could have the more sessions, and I think that would help. But having eight mats out there, it's tight. It's tight.
Yeah.
You're walking over for, I felt so bad. I'm like walking to a match to coach my athlete, and I have to walk in front of a table or walk in front of a camera, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to
Yep.
my mat, but
Yeah, I
it's
think I'd like to see us go to 24 qualifiers and the three like you. I think I had five girls get third and two had the wrestle back and lost in the wrestle back and it was just really those were heartbreaking, and some of them were qualifiers last year because we, went down to four. So I'm really hoping they find a way to go to the 24 qualifiers. I think we'd
agreed.
have to extend a day somewhere, but do we maybe kick them boys out of Saturday or take a half day more of school off and start Wednesday? I don't know.
I just have to
I
write more sub plans. Either
There
way,
you
go
go.
with
There you
it.
go. You get the day off you're coaching, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, why don't we look back just a little ways? How many years has it been since you started wrestling?
Oh gosh. I started in fifth grade.
Okay.
I don't know. How old are you in fifth grade?
I
11?
honestly, I would guess about 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there.
10, 11.
Wow.
Well, I'm 27 now, so roughly 17 years.
Wow, awesome. And so how did that come about? How did you get started in wrestling? I'm guessing dad probably had some influence on that, but give us your story on getting started.
Yeah, so my dad did jujitsu when I was a kid, and he had three daughters, which I think scared the crap out of him. And he put us in jujitsu when we were real young, just so we could defend ourselves later in life. He just wanted us to
Hmm.
be able to, have something in our back pocket, be able to defend ourselves. And what happened is I had a bunch of or we'd always play on the playground, and I had some friends that were wrestlers, didn't know what wrestling really was. I decided I needed to show them some of my new jujitsu moves. And apparently that gets you in trouble. So
It it may.
it may, because I'm pretty sure I choked him. So, which is Max was my teammate all through and all through my senior year. Love Max, but I got sent to the guidance counselor's office, and he was the kids club coach at
Okay.
Ballard at the time, and we kind of struck a deal of, hey, we're not going to be in too much trouble if you show up to wrestling practice tonight. So went home, asked my mom, and she's like, okay, and haven't looked back since.
Very nice. Yeah. I know I've talked to your dad a ton of times, and like I said, I really had no idea about what anything was going on when I first started coaching girls. Honestly, I went to Carver Hawkeye that first day thinking that we'd walk through the tournament because I didn't believe that, we spent a whole month and a half getting ready for it. I couldn't believe anybody would be that prepared. And I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. But then I ended up meeting your dad, and I've talked to him many, many times. And I think it was your senior year we went back. He was doing IA wrestle stuff, so I was always had to send our stuff into your dad, and so it was kind of cool to get to know him there. Um, so you probably wrestled a little bit of the USGWA,
Hmm.
and how was I mean there's some big names that wrestled in USGWA. Did you go out to Michigan and all those things, or stick
Yeah.
around home, or
Yeah, we went to Michigan. Actually, the first year I went, it was just my dad and I. We decided to go up, and I remember having the little DVD player in the back seat all the way up to Michigan. It's in Ypsilanti, that was always fun to say as a kid. Actually, my first bracket ever. I never won USGWA. Got second quite a
okay?
few times, but that first year, I lost to Skylar Grote. She won
Oh,
my bracket. and we have now we've wrestled multiple times since then. We're now good friends. We've been on teams together, but
Uh-huh.
it's kind of funny to look all the way back. Like that might have been sixth grade. We wrestled all the way back in sixth grade.
That's awesome. Yeah, Skylar, actually, I follow her, and I've one of her former coaches is coaching up at BV now, and I had messaged her about him to see how he was when when they hired him up there. Not that I have a lot to do with BV, but I do spend a little bit of time in that room and stuff. So I've gotten to know Skylar a little bit. I like to follow her because I like her perspective on things. If she doesn't necessarily have a good tournament, I like what she says because I like to use that for the girls and stuff. So. Yeah, USGWA was crazy, and I've actually had about a 2 hour long conversation with Kent Ballow. If you've ever had a conversation with
Yep.
Kent Ballow, it's 2 hours minimum,
Mhm.
because and I didn't say more than 3 or 4 words the whole time. But yeah, that guy, good vision. Just I don't know why maybe it didn't take off quite as well as it should have, but it's going well now. After USGWA, we had female elite wrestling in Iowa. And I know I saw you at a few of those, and I know you were doing a clinic at least one of those that I was at. So, um, what did you do around Iowa as far as wrestling?
Around Iowa, um, mainly just my school seasons.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of the situation especially when I first started wrestling, like fifth, sixth, even when I was in junior high. If I wanted to wrestle girls, it wasn't in Iowa.
Hmm.
Generally, like there are a couple names of girls that I'm sure a lot of people know that were wrestling the same around the same time I was. However, was not 106 or 112 pounds, so
Yep.
I
Yep.
didn't. If I wanted female competition, I had to travel. Until about maybe sophomore, junior year of high school. Then Charlotte and George Bailey with few they got some girls tournaments in Iowa, so that was pretty cool to be in home state and do that.
Yeah. And you went to Fargo, so with
Mhm.
USA Wrestling. And were you on a team with Felicity also? Are you guys about the same age? Are you
Felicity,
a little are
two
you a
or
little
3 years.
older? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
Yeah, I was on a Fargo team or two with her, and then I coached a year that she was wrestling for Team Iowa as well.
Gotcha. That
Yeah.
might have been the one I saw the picture of. You might have been coaching that year. How did you ever at Fargo? I didn't look it up. I figured I'd let you tell us your Fargo stories.
Yeah. The my first Fargo, it was well, I actually wrestled in, I mean, back when I was doing it, there was no freestyle state. If you wanted to wrestle on the girls team, you could just go because there were so few girls wrestling in Iowa. So I actually wrestled in boys freestyle state, just to, wrestle freestyle.
Yep.
So I'd wrestled boys freestyle state and that's it. Going to Fargo. My high school coach, Nick Britton and Steve Michelson, they were coaching the boys team. So they were coming up to, Nick Britton gave me the advice that first year in cadet. He's like, well, takedown's a takedown. Just do that. Just take them down. You'll be fine. Score more points, you'll win. It'll be good.
Hmm.
Uh, which is a really funny story because that year I won as a cadet, second freestyle tournament ever. It was crazy, but Fargo's one of my favorite tournaments ever, and I love to coach whenever I can, and was able to get that stop sign a couple more times, but
Yeah, I mean he's right. Takedown's a takedown.
yep.
And the transition, I didn't do a lot of freestyle wrestling in my career. It just really was at my age, it really wasn't a really big thing. I qualified for freestyle state. We used to have regionals at that, way back in the old days and stuff, but I didn't even go because I think my brother got married the year I was going to, so I didn't end up going, but wrestled maybe one or two in college, and I even refed one that I wrestled in and I had no idea what the rules were. So, it was one down, Eric Aiken's dad. I don't know if you know Eric or not from Iowa State. His dad ran a tournament down in Kansas City, and we went down as a college team and wrestled in it. But he said we didn't have to pay if we refereed it also, so we refereed it, and I had no clue what I was doing. But that's all right. That's okay. So I think when I first met you, you were wrestling for OKC's club. and then you ended up going down to Oklahoma City University. How did
Mhm.
all that come about? Or
Yeah,
what was the recruiting process like back then? Because there wasn't as many schools, but there are still
yeah.
some pretty quality schools. So how did you end up at OKC?
Yeah, so I initially I knew I wanted to, I mean, I was playing soccer, I was running track. I had, other sports that I enjoyed as well. Wrestling has always been my favorite. So I was starting to actually get like in-state kind of interest for other sports. And I was like, well,
Hmm.
I want to wrestle in college, and so I actually sent a bunch of emails. I just on my school email one day, like sent a bunch of emails to a bunch of different coaches of schools I was interested in going to. Scheduled a couple visits. But the main thing that like stuck out for me and why I went to OCU partially was because they had a club team affiliated with them.
Okay.
And my goal was to go to college and be a national champion, but I wanted to wrestle for the United States as well. And
Yep.
they had a very clear that was their goal too. They wanted their athletes to excel in college, but also wrestle at world team trials. Wrestle at Olympic trials, wrestle at the US Open. And that was very in line with me. But the assistant coach, Matt Stevens, he's who would reach out. Like he responded to my email, we scheduled a visit, and then he had my phone number. So when I was back, like he would look up my meets on track wrestling
Hmm.
and would text me and be like, "Hey, like I was watching one of your matches, like, you did great. This was awesome." And that just he made me feel really special and like he did really care. He was an awesome coach, but that was awesome. I was like, this guy from day one has been in my corner without even being in my corner.
Uh-huh.
So it's a big reason I went to OCU. But
And I've been down to the campus, and a beautiful campus, kind of a neat area of town. A lot of little restaurants and things in there that are interesting. But the weather's not bad.
yeah.
That probably didn't hurt because I think I was there in March for NAIA Nationals, and we were in t-shirt and shorts, and I was like, oh my God, this is great,
Well,
because
and
it
then
was
if it
probably,
even yeah, even
I
if it
mean,
flurries, they'd cancel class. It was awesome.
oh, that's perfect.
I'd be like, "Oh, perfect. I can get all my laundry done."
Nice. Yeah. And they have a lot of good sporting programs down there. The thing I noticed, and I told you earlier, the softball team had their own bus, and the field was, I mean, it looked like a professional stadium at the time. I mean, they have a lot of good sports going on there. And
Yeah.
it's a nice city. I enjoyed being down there for the little, of course, I wasn't there a lot, so I didn't get to see all the seedy parts of town, but what I saw of Oklahoma City, I was pretty impressed with. So very nice place.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so go ahead.
OC is the hidden gem for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other thing I just thought of that I remembered, I when I was like a junior, I qualified for senior world team trials.
Oh.
Um, and they were up in Madison, Wisconsin.
Hmm.
And so because of that, like you're 17, you're like, oh, am I supposed to, should I do this? I don't know. I had to go get a doctor's note that I could. And the OCU bus actually picked me up at a come and go in Des Moines. And I
Oh, cool.
traveled with the OCU team up to Madison to wrestle in my first world team or senior world team trials. So it was really a really awesome opportunity, and it was cool that
That
they
is
were super willing to do that stuff.
that's really cool. Did you do any other visits by chance, or were you sold on that one?
I did a couple more. My first one actually went to Waldorf.
Okay.
And I looked at a couple schools in Kentucky. Those were after my OCU visit, but that's what I always tell kids too who are looking at colleges. I'm like, even if you think that you're sold on something, go look at other places because it'll either hammer in that that's the place for you, or maybe you'll change your mind. Go see what's out there. But those looking at the other schools, I was like, yep, OCU is the right decision for me.
Very good. Yeah, that you're exactly right. And I think as a teacher, you're in a good position to say that. One of the things I've noticed by doing this podcast, and I've talked to a lot of the girls that, I've coached in the past on different teams, and not all of them have had great college experiences, and some of them are like, I should have taken another visit. I should have gone back one more time. I should have, looked at something that had my major. Those types of things. And I think sometimes we get excited that, oh my God, the school wants me to come here, and then we make that decision. Maybe not based on the best information. So very good advice there.
Well,
Um, yeah.
oh, sorry. Don't mean to
No,
cut you
go
off.
ahead. No, you're fine.
Sure.
It's about you.
Oh, sorry. No, you're good. My one thing that I'm really, really thankful. My parents are so supportive. But one thing that was kind of my dad's idea that we ended up doing is I actually went to a college tournament. Like some weekend we went to a college tournament to see how the coaches coached.
Uh-huh.
Like they don't know you're there. You get to see all of that, the dynamic and everything, without them kind of knowing. And that's something I always advise girls to do. I'm like, just go check out a tournament. See how the dynamic is of, or like if you like how they coach in the corner, go take a look. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, they're trying to sell you on their school, but you go double check.
Yeah, because they're good salesmen that day that you're there visiting, and the next thing you show up and wait, this isn't the same coach that we talked, I talked to during the visit here. Yeah, that's really good advice to go see that. I'm gonna before we get too far out of college and stuff, I want to bounce back because a lot of the girls, now barely even remember the idea of wrestling boys. A lot of the girls on my team never wrestled a boy. Most of those girls, I think, graduated. Was it this year or was it the year before? Might have been this year was the last. Well, yeah, it would have been this year. I think was the last group of girls to have to wrestle boys. And you said earlier you weren't 106 pounds. You weren't 100 pounds. So you wrestled at in the. I think you were a sectional champion at 145. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a pretty impressive stat because I don't care across the country when you look at girls that have qualified for the state tournament, it's typically at 106 or whatever the low weight was at the time, 103, 106 or 112. It's not been at 145, and to be a sectional champion was pretty impressive. I remember that year. I know you probably are still probably a little bitter by this whole thing, but what was it like to wrestle back in the days when it was wrestling the boys and you weren't the smallest weight class. You were wrestling sometimes full. They were men.
Oh, absolutely. It was, I don't know. It's hard for me because I didn't know any different.
Hmm.
Like wrestling girls was kind of a weird thing that I'd do nationals, in the summer or off season. It was kind of my normal. The Do you know who Alana Vederick is at all?
Yeah, I know Atlanta. We're
Okay.
good friends.
Okay, so actually this is the funniest story that I think, or that kind of describes how my experience was at Ballard was we we had a duel, and I'm a little bit older than her, and we had some JV matches before our duel, and Norwalk was there, and one of the guys on the team was gonna have to wrestle Atlanta. And he's like, what do I do? How do I wrestle a girl? Blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, you wrestled me at practice like last week. And he's like, well, that's different. That's you. And I'm like, I'm also a girl, but that's kind of my experience at Ballard was so awesome. I had so many supportive people, but at first in the Mat Club room, you could, even as a little kid, I could feel the whispers. I could, all of that.
Hmm.
And then, just with work ethic and like just showing them how much I love the sport. I won all those people over, and it was really cool too, especially like in high school. It got to a point where I was wrestling the same teams in junior high and then high school in our conference. Like I remember showing up to Carroll, maybe my sophomore or junior year, and we walk in the doors and the Carroll coach, he's like, "Oh, Rachel, I got a locker room for you right over here." Like
Uh-huh.
they're like, "Oh, yep, Ballard as a girl is what it is," and I don't know. I didn't know much different, but I'm really, really thankful for my experience too, because I've been asked the question before, like, would I have would I have preferred to wrestle like now with girls? Would I have gone to Iowa if that would have been an option when I was graduating high school? And that's really hard for me to say because I have so many fond memories and it was just an amazing experience for me that I wouldn't really change any of it, but I'm really happy that there's all these opportunities for girls now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I, of course, started coaching. It's been 10 years ago that I started coaching girls. And, I was a big advocate. Anybody said anything different, I would, I always had a response and able to, argue my points and things. But now with having the all girls teams, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm really okay with this. I am. And I'd see there's still injuries, but I'm not seeing some of the really bad shoulder injuries that I saw. Not as many surgeries. I look back at Keegan and she had both shoulders, both hips, knee, and that's 4 years worth of wrestling. And, I'm all right with the girls wrestling girls now. I think it's awesome. And actually, to tell you the truth, I don't even watch boys wrestling anymore. I barely know who's on our high school team. I really don't know anything about the boys wrestling. I won't go to Boys State, but boy, did I enjoy watching. I enjoyed sitting down and watching the 1A portion of the tournament that Thursday night. Man, that was awesome to sit and just be a fan and watch all that stuff going on. It was
Yeah.
really cool. Did you get a chance to do that while you were down there? Did you get to sit and watch some wrestling?
I didn't watch much. I really didn't. I this is bad, but a little bit of me is still a tiny bit burnout on wrestling just because I competed for so long. So
Yeah.
I do have trouble. Like my fiance will want to watch the Iowa duel or whatever, and I'm like, dude, wrestling is all the time. Like I'm good actually,
Uh-huh.
but I mean, as much as I love it because it's that fire is coming back in a different way as a coach
Yeah.
now. But for even just like right away after they're like, yeah, like you can coach now, and I'm like, oh, I need a moment.
Yeah. Well,
Like
I mean, you
wrestling's all I
wrestled,
thought about for a long
yeah,
time.
for a very long time, and it is tough. How did you transition? That's something that I really struggled after my senior year of wrestling in college. It was really rough me trying to figure out where my place was in the world because I'd always been a wrestler.
Yeah.
How was that transition for you?
Yeah, so I was at Hawkeye Wrestling Club, so I was coaching at William Penn, still kind of competing, but I couldn't quite do both at the same time. Then my really good friend Jaron Glosser, who's a coach at Loris now,
Hmm.
he kind of got me in touch with the Branzes and Dan Dennis, and I went and wrestled for Hawkeye Wrestling Club, and I'm so thankful for that opportunity. However, it was like I hurt my knee again, and then I broke my ribs and had to spend a bunch of time off, like had to get my ear drained all the time. And I was just like, man, like I'm dreading practice. Like I don't, and it's nothing against them. I loved that room. I really did.
Uh-huh.
It was an awesome experience, but I'm like, I don't want to go to practice. And that was never the case for me ever in my career. Like I loved wrestling practice. It was my escape from everything else. And I was like, man, maybe this is a sign, and my fiance is coaching at or teaching, he coaches too, but teaching at West Liberty. And he's like, well, we need subs all the time. We always need subs. We have a sub crisis right now. He's like, why don't you sub a little bit, see if you like it, and you can still wrestle at the same time, and then that kind of will help you make your decision. And that's I got my sub authorization, and I spent every single day subbing. I was like, yeah, this is like if I miss it in a month, then this isn't how it's supposed to be. I should still be competing, but I didn't. I loved teaching. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, man, I think this is a good sign that I should call it quits. But
So what was your original degree at Oklahoma City?
so I actually went in as an education major. And
Okay.
then they told me that I'd have to be there for 5 years for student teaching. And as you know, especially at the time, there's not really red shirts in
Yeah.
college
Yeah.
girls wrestling.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, and me being a dumb 18-year-old was like, well, screw that. I'm not going to college for 5 years. My scholarship's for 4 years. So I switched to a business degree. So I have a bachelor's in business administration. And I did a couple internships, but that also was not, I'm not a sit at a desk person. I don't think that's
Uh-huh.
what I can do. So found my way back to education eventually.
Nice. And so you code or you teach middle school, is that correct?
Yep.
What grade and what subjects?
I teach sixth and seventh grade. So I teach ancient civilizations and then world geography. So social
Okay.
studies.
I have
Yep.
heard from many middle school teachers that seventh graders are the worst humans on the planet. Do you believe that also?
Um, I absolutely love middle school. I subbed in all the buildings. I don't know. It's middle school. They're still like they're still kids. So they're still
Yep.
a little bit, they're still like kids and they're like the whole world is their oyster. They could be professional basketball players, which I mean, hopefully professional wrestlers instead, but the whole world is open to them, but they also I'm really a sarcastic human, so they
Uh-huh.
they understand sarcasm like the young kids. So I absolutely love this age. But yeah, a lot of people are like, "Are you crazy? You chose to be a middle school teacher?" I'm like, I love it, but yeah, it it's not for the faint of heart, and if you have a really sensitive nose, probably not for you either. But
Yes, so I'm helping some middle school girls wrestling. I normally just the high school coach, but this year we finally convinced our administration that the girls should practice just with girls. And so I did get them in our room and stuff. So I'm finishing that up. And it's rough for me. I will tell you that age group, their attention span's a little shorter than high school girls, and they're learning that they do need deodorant. So yes,
absolutely.
it's an important part. And I also have high school girls that I've had to explain the feature of using deodorant is a really good thing to start working on. That's usually
Yeah.
freshmen though. So
Well, that's something I didn't even think about when I help out with junior high boys as
uh
well, but it's some of those things you don't even think about. You're like, yep, deodorant, or even this year I'm like, girl, you need a sports bra under our singlet. We need a sports bra,
yes.
But like having to, I'm like, I didn't think I was gonna have to pull a kid into the hallway and tell them that they need a sports bra today, but I guess that's what I'm doing.
Yep. Well, it's good that you're in the room to have that because there's a lot of male coaches that would struggle with that conversation. I am not one of them. I've been around you girls for as long as I feel like one of the girls now. I actually bought the lady that does our singlets, and I met her through a tournament. She's out, Cheryl Baynard. I don't know if you've ever ran into her before.
It sounds
North Carolina, USA Wrestling.
okay.
Anyway, she designed singlets and stuff, but she started a sports bra line too. And so I got a good deal on getting all my middle school girls a sports bra. And
Oh, awesome.
that's an interesting conversation for a 54-year-old guy to talk to middle. What size sports bra do you need? But but we got them and they like them and stuff. So I wanted to make sure that there was no accidental pop outs is very important
Yes.
because I know a few girls it's happened to and it's not a
No.
good situation.
No. Well,
So yeah.
yeah, that's the hard thing, and that's where we were too. Awesome situation, but not awesome for gear. We had 43 girls go out for wrestling on our middle school team this year for West Liberty,
Yes.
and which is crazy because we graduate around 80 in a class.
That's
But
nuts.
yeah, so it was the cool thing to do, which is awesome to me because I was always the weird girl that wrestled. So it's really cool to me that it's like the cool sport to do. But we ran into the situation of wait, we don't have singlets for 43 girls.
Yeah.
So we had to buy some plain black ones, and so they were higher cut. But yeah, that was the situation we ran into of like, okay, well, we've got these really old boys singlets. Like
Hmm.
it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work.
Yeah. And we might as well give Jim a little shout out too, because he helped you guys find some shoes, didn't he? What's if
He sure
that's
did.
is it wrestling for life or wrestle for life? What's his I always get it mixed up. Do you remember
I
what
think
it's
it's
called
wrestle
exactly? Wrestle
wrestle for
for
life.
life?
Hmm.
Wrestle for Life. Yeah. Awesome guy. I mean, he's been around for a long time helping middle school kids get gear that need it and just a super guy. He's donated to teams I've done before. So if anybody ever needs anything, middle school age or lower, Jim's the guy to go to. And if you have a few extra dollars or shoes or anything, he's the guy to donate them to because he
Yeah.
will make sure that it gets to somebody that needs it, and he does a great job of that. So yeah,
Yeah, we cannot
that's
be
pretty
more
cool.
thankful. Those
Yeah,
and the girls thought they were the coolest shoes ever. They're like, "Whoa, these are brand new." I'm like, yeah, sure are.
yeah, because we're used to digging in that big pile of empty of old shoes that sit in our rooms and stuff. But
Right.
yeah, we're having to buy a lot more smaller sizes now. I
Yes.
actually I had to buy myself a new pair of shoes the last 2 weeks of season
Oh
because
God.
every pair of shoes I've purchased, I've had to give to somebody that comes into the room because they didn't have shoes, and we had a new girl start 2 weeks before the end of season, and so I like, well, here's my shoes, and I went home and I ordered. I went on the Rudis site and I got the mystery box. And
Ooh.
so it was cheaper because I was like 2 weeks. I'm not going to spend a lot of money, but it was kind of fun. It was almost like Christmas because
Yeah,
I
that
got
is
a,
cool. I didn't know they
yeah,
did that.
yeah, they just, I think it's their closeouts or whatever. I got a pair of Kenny Mondays, the purple and orange ones. So not our school
Ooh.
colors,
No, that's all right.
but that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I don't even know where I left off. I'm going to go back through here. Let's see. We got off on a tangent, which is
no
great,
worries.
actually. Um, some of that senior level experience. I'm looking in the background, and that's what I'm seeing is a lot of stop signs and a lot of Americas and a lot of USA Wrestling stuff. How was your experience on the senior level? I mean, you did well. I remember watching in Final X. I remember being in Coralville, I believe, and talking to you after one tournament. I don't remember what tournament it was, but I know I watched you. So, how was the experience on the senior level?
It was so awesome. And what's really cool is I never would have realized that this is how my like life would have turned out. Considering I didn't get an education degree, but what's super, super cool about all the USA Wrestling stuff is I got to travel all over and wrestle all over. And what's neat is I have like all my credentials from overseas. I have like all my souvenirs that I randomly got when I was overseas in my classroom. And like as we talk about different countries, like I get to show them like pictures of 16, 17-year-old me at like in that country. And it's I don't know, it's so cool and how full circle it became of like they're like, "Wait, what? You've been to France?" I'm like, "Yeah, I wrestled in France." And they're like, "Well, who all were on the team?" I'm like, "Well, Spencer Lee was on that team." And and they're like, "What?" Like that's crazy, but it's what I right now uh how I see like those experiences. And like I get to make like social studies is a really hard concept for middle schoolers. Like
Hmm.
they know my kids know West Liberty, Iowa, and that's their life and that's what they know and that's it. And it's really hard for them to understand how people other places live. And I get to kind of be that bridge of like I get to tell them real world experiences that I've had in these different countries. And I'm so thankful for that. And then on top of that too, it was so cool at those ages to I mean my professors at OCU did not think it was cool because I was
I
gone
bet
for a
not.
long time. But
Yep.
it was, I mean, my senior year of high school, uh I missed a bunch of school. I went to Sweden, I went to Brazil, I think I went to Spain that summer too. It's I am just so thankful that wrestling gave me that opportunity to travel. Um and the kids now they're like, "Oh, like are you gonna you should go here, you should go here." And I'm like, "Well, I've never actually traveled on my own. I've just it's for wrestling." Like
Yeah.
I've never actually planned a overseas vacation, but it was a
I've
job.
I do the same thing. I go where the teams are going, and that's where my vacation is for that year, So that's what I do. It's crazy. So, did you ever get to spend any time at the Olympic Training Center?
I did, yeah. I lived there one summer, and
Hmm.
then a bunch of camps. I was there for probably at least a month at a time for quite a few years in a row.
Gotcha. One of my friends, former brother-in-law he spent a summer or so at the Olympic Training Center. He was an NAI wrestler. It might have just been a few weeks or a month or something, but when they placed at nationals, they got to spend some time there. Um, his experience was, I like wrestling, but these people are crazy. What was your experience at the Olympic Training Center?
I liked the Olympic Training Center. It was a little difficult because it was everything. Yeah, it was like the whole thing was wrestling. You were going to wrestling practices for 3 hours, or not 3 hours, three times a day for multiple
Hmm.
hours at a time. I definitely enjoyed it towards like the end of like camps. I'd be like, okay, I'm ready to get out of here.
Yeah.
When I lived there, it was a little different because I had my car. So that was nice. I could get away a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if this is everyone's issue, but my main issue with the OTC is their food's too good. So I would struggle with my weight real bad. All you can eat calf and good food. I was like, yeah, that was not good for me, but I did enjoy my time out there for sure.
But you're burning a lot of calories. You got to make sure you're fueling your body. That's so
Hmm.
was Emma Randall coaching at the time at the training center?
She was.
She's probably one of my favorite coaches to be around. I've not been around her a lot, but I've got to spend a few hours. Um, I'm sure, yeah, you were of the time of Allison Schuster and stuff too. So I've been at a couple different things with, before when she was in high school, I went to a clinic there, and then her memorial one. We went to, I was got to spend a couple hours with Emma that night, and well, she's been on the podcast, and we talk every once in a while. So,
Mhm.
absolutely phenomenal coach. Learned a
Mhm.
lot. I learned a lot from her.
Yeah.
Is that is the Olympic Training Center like that? All the coaches just that knowledgeable and just it's got to be awesome.
Yeah. So knowledgeable. I had Terry was on a couple trips, Terry Steiner, Clarissa
Hmm.
was my coach, Emma Randall. Yeah, it was awesome. The amount of coaches, and then a lot of like club coaches or people from all different places would be there as well to coach, and that was awesome. And what was also cool is, you sit down with your bowl of food and Jordan Burroughs sits down next to you.
Yeah.
Especially when you're 17, 18, 19, you're like, wait, is that, is that so and
Yeah.
so?
I'm sure
You're like,
that's got to be really cool. I get all nerdy around, stuff like that too. So I'm sure it's got to be really rough at 16, 17 going, holy crap, that's Jordan
well,
Burroughs. Wow.
and
Helen Maroulis. Wow.
I can't remember who said it, but I think that was something I was like fangirling, I guess, a little bit. And
Uh,
I don't, you know me a little bit, but I am not I'm not I don't want to say emotional, but I'm like I do not wear emotions on my face very often.
yeah, yep.
So, my version of fangirling is like, wait, psst, who's that? And I can't remember who it was, but they're like, yeah, you're here too. They should think it's cool that you're in this room. And I was like, oh, whoa, that's a cool perspective. I guess that
Yeah.
is true. I am at the OTC training. But
That is a cool perspective to have. That is really neat. Yeah, I've been out there one time just to visit. We went through the tour, and it was actually after the first time I watched I the in Ames. I can't remember if it was 2012 somewhere in there had World Team Trials, and it was the first time I actually saw girls wrestling or women's wrestling. It was
yeah.
pretty cool. But then I ran into my friend Tony DeAnda. Do you know? Did you ever run into Tony? I
Yeah.
had to. So Tony and
Mhm.
I went to high school together and stuff. So I ran into Tony and he was at the training center. So I went out and they wouldn't let me call him. That was pre cell phone days.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember pre cell phone days? I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably not a lot though.
Not a lot. I I only had an iPhone or like a smartphone. I guess
Uh-huh.
my first smartphone was like my senior year of high school, and then I
Oh,
had one of
really?
the flip ones that like maybe beginning of high school, end of junior
Yeah.
high, but
Did
I
you
guess
have the
at
one that
home
flipped
phone.
out and had the full keyboard?
I was cool enough to have a full keyboard. I got that for
Ah,
birthday. It was pretty cool.
yes, I think they should go back to that one. That would be really cool.
I
I
agree.
have, look at this. I'm gonna check this out. The girls make fun of me because I also have the flip phone.
I like it.
It's great, except I've every time you drop it, I have to get a new one. And since I have insurance, they won't give me a different kind. So this is my third one.
Well, I keep saying that I'm gonna go to a flip phone and my fiance is not on board with that, but I just don't like getting all my emails on my phone. Like I can wait
Yes.
till I get to
Well,
work.
I you can ignore emails. That's cool.
I should.
I do it all the time. Um, let's just jump into real quick the direction of college women's wrestling, just because it kind of interests me and I want to hear your perspective on it. Really cool, the NCAA, announcing that they're going to make it a sport. You
Mhm.
wrestled in the NAIA, which, my opinion, the NAIA and D3 have built college women's wrestling. I'll just give you my opinion. And you can go off of that. Um, I think Division Three should separate out and have their own thing, which would make D2 and D1 a very small tournament.
Mhm.
But I don't I see the difference. No scholarships at D3. It's I don't see it being a play a fair playing field when and again I love the University of Iowa. I'm from Iowa. Iowa wrestling's awesome, but it seems kind of crazy that that one team is basically Olympians and world team members, and everybody else is not on scholarship. you know. So
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on the where college wrestling is at right now? Maybe where it was, where we're going. I think we're going in a great direction. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm on a similar page. Like I was there for the announcement because I was at Hawkeye Wrestling Club when they announced that they were adding women's wrestling to at Iowa. I think it's really awesome, but how I foresaw it was that, Okie State was gonna add a team, Iowa
Hmm.
State was gonna add a team, like you're gonna Penn State, like you're gonna get some of these
Yeah.
schools were also going to add it because that's the thing too, if you're top of your class wrestling, why would you not go to Iowa right now?
Hmm.
Why would you not? And that's just the case, they're getting the best of the best, cream of the crop. So it is making it kind of not a level playing field. You
Yeah.
know, and just bigger fan base, more access to NIL money. And to be fair, I really don't know how NIL works. That was before, or that was
Hmm.
after my time. But I think I like that we're separating it out, and I hope that it separates out to the level of how boys is separated out
Yeah.
or
Yep.
girls is separated out. Because I wrestled in the last we used to have WCWA, um
Yes.
which is it's funny to explain it to people because we had schools from Canada competing. You're trying
Hmm.
to be a national champion and you're wrestling for somebody from Canada. But it's I wrestled in the last one, and then we also kind of had an NAIA nationals too. Is kind of a weird situation. I mean, we didn't end up having it my senior year because of COVID, but
Uh-huh.
it was that weird introductory phase of like, okay, NAIA, we're gonna have our own thing, but then we still did the WCWA as well. I think it's gonna take some time, but I think we should get it fully separated because that's the thing. Like an athlete at Wartburg and an athlete at Iowa are different situations for
It's
sure.
very much so. Yeah. And you're right. I was hoping that we would see Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, Iowa, Iowa State, Iowa,
Yeah.
Northern Iowa, even,
Yeah.
Jillian, I don't know if you remember Jillian's letter to
Mhm.
the, not every girl wants to be a Hawkeye, and I thought that would be really cool, but it just hasn't happened. And I don't
Yeah.
know if it's because of NIL money. I don't know if it's just where we're at. But
Yeah.
man, the NAIA and D3 has done a fantastic job of building that. I would have
Yeah.
never guessed 10 years ago that there'd be 20 plus from junior college to Division 1 schools that had women's wrestling. And
Yeah.
it's just crazy. And to
Well, and
think that
okay.
I was going to say, and to think that, we're struggling, the coaches are struggling to find people is
Yeah.
is what the problem is now. There's too many, almost too many schools that have it. So
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Well, I believe, and I hope no one fact checks my numbers here, but the when I was looking at colleges, I believe it was 26 that
Okay.
offered women's wrestling when I was graduating in 2016. That number is insane now. At that time, there's only one school in Iowa that had wrestling, and it was Waldorf.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
it. And you look at all the schools that have women's wrestling in Iowa alone right now,
Yes.
is awesome. But yeah, that's the struggle, and that's what I've been trying to a lot of our um high school athletes that are wrestling. I'm like, hey, have you thought about wrestling in college? And a lot of them haven't even like, oh, you think I'm good enough to wrestle in college? I'm like, absolutely, you're good enough to
Yeah.
wrestle in college. You can definitely wrestle in college. I think it'll just take you know, those doors are becoming open, there's spots to fill. I think it's going to continue to grow. Like we see, I mean, you and I have both seen how crazy it grew in Iowa. I think
Yeah.
it will on a national level too. It's just gonna, it's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some trial and error.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Man, I think I'm gonna go into I always ask at the end of all my podcasts. It's a series of questions and they're very important questions. Actually, it's just to get to know Rachel Waters a little bit, but actually sometimes they're the most fun questions that we get to have. And some are easy, some are more in depth, but I'm gonna go through those because I think we've really hit a lot of wrestling and we're not quite at an hour yet, but we'll probably be at about an hour and a half by the time we get through all these, I'm guessing. So,
All right.
um, we'll start real easy. What's your favorite color?
Orange for sure.
Orange. Oh my
Mhm.
God. So you should move to Northwest Iowa and be on you could take over for me. You would look great in the orange and black. I
Oh,
think that would
thank
be
you.
awesome. That would be awesome. It may not be as exciting as the area you live in. Northwest Iowa is pretty slow, but that's all right. Um, do you have any pets? And the actual question is, if you could go out and buy yourself a pet right now, whatever you wanted, and a lot of times I started with cats and dogs, but we can expand that out. What would you go get yourself?
A liger. I don't know.
Ooh,
I always like to say that. But I have two cats.
you're a
Um
cat person.
yes, they're actually both of them are I can see both of them right now. But they actually are indoor outdoor, and we live right by the school. So one of my cats joins the middle school kids for recess. So
Oh, nice.
she's my cat, but she's also West Liberty Middle School cat as well.
Very
But
nice. So she's kind of a mascot.
yes, a little bit of our middle school.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. So, if you end up not, later on in life, you could get like 100 cats and be the crazy cat lady that used to wrestle. Maybe that'd be kind of a
Yeah.
cool thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you spend much time watching, do you like movies? Are you a movie
I
buff?
I cannot I cannot sit still that long. My attention span is not great. I My fiance gets so mad at me. We'll start a movie and I'll get up to go change the laundry and he's like, he'll pause it. I'm like, why'd you pause it? And he's like, because you're gonna miss it. I'm like, oh, I don't really care. But
So you're not a movie buff. Okay. Do you have a favorite movie that maybe you can sit all the way through?
yes, my favorite movie of all time is Red Dawn. But
Ooh,
not the new one, the one
the
from
old one.
84. Yeah.
The old one where I was watching it when I was young.
Yeah. It's my iPhone, that's the only one I've ever bought in the App Store. So anytime I forget to download movies, I just watch Red Dawn again on my phone.
Nice.
Favorite movie by far.
Very nice. Do you have enough attention span? Do you binge any TV shows at all?
I do. I always go back to my like classic like The Office and Parks and Recreation,
Hmm.
Burn Notice. Right now I'm rewatching White Collar, those kind of easy shows to watch, I guess.
You kind of have that. Do you have that sense? Is that your sense of humor, The Office? Is that
Yes. Yeah.
gotcha? Very much so. I love The Office. It's one of my favorite shows.
Mm.
Um, Now something I that's near and dear to me is cartoons. Do you
Mhm.
watch cartoons at all? Are you too sophisticated for the cartoon, or did you watch them when you were young?
I didn't really ever I didn't watch much cartoons at all. I don't know. My aunt always makes fun of my parents. They're like my parents were very strict parents, and as an adult now I'm like I'm very glad that they were. I'm very
Mm.
happy for that. But like we weren't allowed to watch certain stuff, but then we'd be watching Cops. My aunt always makes fun of that, and Dad's like, "Well, they got to be ready for the real world." Um, but so I have not I don't watch many cartoons, but
Well, I'm going to table that question for a few years when you're married and you have some kids, then we'll start talking about cartoons.
all right, all
That'll
right.
work. That'll work. So you've traveled all over the world, way more than I've ever traveled. But if you were going to hop in a plane, where are you going on vacation to?
I'd go back to Estonia. It's one of my favorite Tallinn, Estonia is one of my favorite places I've ever been. Super cool. It's got an entire wall around the city, cobblestone, just beautiful place. And you have to or we I don't know if you have to. We took a ferry over from Finland to get
Okay.
there. So really cool place. But
And you being a history, you must be a history buff with being a social studies history type teacher. Probably a pretty cool area to be at.
I would love to go to Egypt as well, but I don't think that that's recommended at the moment. But
Well, I'm sure at some point in time you might be able to go there.
yeah.
So, um, we talk a lot about pre-match rituals and things on this. I always talk to former wrestlers and coaches. Did you have a pre-match ritual? Is there something you did every time? What
Yeah.
was yours?
So my first match was always terrible. I always had to just get through my first match. I just did not wrestle well. So something that I started doing a little bit later in my career is I would wrestle a full match before my first match just
Hmm.
to and it's not it was just I was tight, I was nervous. That was really good for me because as soon as that whistle blows in that first club you're like, "Oh crap. I'm
Yeah.
wrestling,"
Hmm.
to try and get rid of that but and this I might be weird, probably am, but I couldn't listen to music. Like I had to like listen to the sound of the tournament. If I was listening to music I'd get too in my head. But the main thing is I just had to chat or like joke around with my coaches and people around me. I just had to get my mind off of wrestling. And that's what I try with my athletes as well, is like your body knows what to do. You spend
Hmm.
however many hours in the wrestling room, let your body take over. Let your body take over. So that was, my coaches would always have a list of jokes on their phone that they'd come out, they'd tell me right before my matches I just had to, take like pretend I wasn't wrestling almost. And
Uh-huh.
then I'd feel way better. But
Just that's actually really good because I have some girls I think in that on that same thing. Few of them I've gone to telling some jokes to prior to because they get too wound up and you can just tell that they're just it's too nerve-wracking and
yeah,
stuff. So you did not listen to music at all.
no,
Do you listen to music now?
I do. I do listen to music. Now, I mean, I
So
love music. I just couldn't
okay,
wrestling. Yeah.
gotcha. So what's your favorite genre of music?
My favorite, I I'll say country. However, not radio country.
Okay.
Kind of like Red Dirt, Appalachia kind of country. For sure.
You're listening to yeah, that's have you Red Clay Strays? Have you heard
I
them?
love the Red Clay Strays. Yeah.
Oh my God, I think
Seen
that's
them
my
in
new
concert a
favorite
couple
group.
times.
Have you
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I've just stumbled across them. I don't know the other. It's been a few weeks ago, but I like. Oh my God, I really like this band.
Yeah.
That's
My fiance actually he has a country music podcast or two
really.
now, I think. Yeah, so we go to music festivals in the summer which is cool about being a teacher. I have my summers off.
Hmm.
So we get to go to a lot of music festivals, and I going to college in Oklahoma found a lot of this music. Like I knew a lot of this music before him. So that's something we bonded over is the our love of music. We went saw Flatland Cavalry this week, if you've heard of them,
I
but
haven't, but I'll look it up now. You
they're very good.
better plug your fiance's podcast. What's it called?
It's called, well, he has The Thicket and
The
then
Thicket?
Hippies and Cowboys. Yep.
What's the last one? I'm sorry.
It's called Hippies and Cowboys, like the Cody
Hippies
Jinks
and Cow.
song.
Okay. I'm gonna have to check those out. That's cool.
Yeah.
I love all kinds of music, so and country is one of the genres I listen to. I'm not a real good hardcore rap kind of guy, but other than that, I listen to almost everything. If it could just be hair bands all the time, I'd be great too.
That's wrestling room. I like to, I mean, I'll throw some of my like faster country on, but definitely a classic rock kind of person in the wrestling room for sure.
Yeah, I get stuck listening to a lot of the girls crap, and
Oh,
I try to tune it out. It's horrible.
I'm not a big fan either.
Not at all.
On in the vans, I get aux, no questions. No, thank you. That stuff.
You got control over that team. I don't get anything. I'm the old guy that they make fun of and everything. So we have a pretty fun time. I'm gonna jump away from my questions because just by some of the things we've been talking about. What are some of the things that you talk to the girls about as a coach now? I mean, I think over my years, I've gotten away from even talking about wrestling sometimes, and we talk more about. Um, we used a lot of "I am enough" stuff this year and "I am" statements, things like that. What are some of the things that you guys do?
I'm trying to think here. I don't know. We try and do a lot of like we were trying to have fun this year. Like we did it was a TikTok trend, but we did like the white lies t-shirt. So like
Okay.
everybody came to practice in
Yep.
a shirt and it's a white lie. Mine said that I think everyone's go-to should be a headlock. But
Oh
obviously
my God.
joking.
Have you ever seen it's an Edinburgh's video where we don't do anything but headlock. If you're on the bottom, reach back, grab the head. That's the greatest video ever.
Yeah, it's awful. Actually, my fiance showed it to me. He's the one that found it. I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" I thought it was very funny, but
Yeah, that is absolutely funny. Yeah, we broke out coloring books last year, and that actually really helped. They would
yeah.
sit in color prior to matches, and then I would get a stack of coloring pages, and I'd have to put them on my refrigerator, and if I didn't, I would get in trouble.
Oh,
So,
that's funny.
things like yeah,
Yeah.
it's just different coaching girls than coaching boys, I think, and I try to find some fun ways of
Yeah.
so they get invested into it and stuff.
Well,
The team aspect.
that's smart. We just honestly chat, but they're like, I get asked relationship advice like crazy. Like, girl, if he's not texting you back, you're in high school. Break up with him. It's
That's
fine.
right.
Move on.
I tell them boys suck, and the only guy they can trust is their dad and me. So
Yep.
that's it.
I say that too. I'm like, I'm gonna give you the advice my grandpa gave me. Don't talk to boys.
There you
Don't
go.
talk.
It's perfect advice. It's great advice. That is incredible advice. Um, we'll go back to some wrestling. Well, this is actually coaching philosophy too. So it's second period. The coin has been flipped. It landed on green. You're green. What are we choosing? What are our girls picking?
Okay. So this loaded question because again, I'm from Ballard, so you didn't get a choice. You went bottom every single
Mm-hmm.
time. Like or defer for second period, but
Yep.
then bottom. Like it wasn't a choice because bottom was a mindset and you were getting out. And I love that I was coached that way and that was my philosophy. However, as a coach now, especially junior high girls, like there are a lot of girls, whoever gets put on top first, that person's gonna win.
Yeah.
So, as a junior high and with 3-point takedowns now too.
Uh-huh.
Escape escape is just it's not as valuable as it used to be.
No.
So I it hurts my heart every single time that I say it, but I've told a lot of kids to pick top this year. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is this is weird. Yeah, I it really just definitely depends on the kid though too. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of we have a lot of especially junior high girls or Eileen Aragon, our freshman who got fourth. She is an absolute hammer on top. Like she will break kids in the second period. So it's like I'm not deferring, she's going top. We're gonna
Yeah.
break this girl. And, but I would definitely say it really depends on the athlete for sure.
Yeah, I think that's changed. A lot of girls coaches, guys that came over from, and now coaching girls they're realizing that picking down sometimes might be the dumbest thing we can possibly do. Um,
Yeah.
I'll share with you just because we're sharing coaching stuff. But Jason Shepard, do you know Jason? Coaches with
Yes.
me, Tatum's dad and stuff.
Yeah.
And we were at AAU State, I think when it might have been her seventh or eighth grade year, and
Hmm.
she was actually, I think she was down by one, and she was wrestling Simone, from Des Moines, right?
Yeah.
And she chose top, and like, Jason, what is she doing? And he's like, if I choose it for her and she loses, then it's my fault. He said with her, I just let her pick whatever she wants and then she has to own it. And at that point I was like, I really like that philosophy because if I can get the girl to be confident enough to pick what she wants, then it's not on me. Then it's not my fault that we lost that
Yeah.
match. So I've used that a lot. And then I do have some girls that are really good on bottom, but not many. So we will take top a lot because girls,
Yeah.
it's the upper body strength difference.
Yeah,
If you can get
for
you can
sure.
get the wrist turned in, you probably have a pin.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No,
definitely
true.
definitely different. And you're right. I don't defer as much as I used to because if we have any advantage at all, I want to take it right away.
Yeah. Well, and it's been hard too because again, like my experience, like where the wrestling room that I grew up in, Britton, Weatherman, all of
Hmm.
those guys, it was like if you didn't get a choice, it was your coach's choice. Like, and
Yep.
you were not going to argue, you were not gonna you look at your coach, you do what he says,
Yep.
figure it out. And as much as I did love that. Like I really do like that. Like I trust my coaches and I'm gonna do what they say.
Hmm.
They know what's best, which sometimes as coaches in the corner, we do, I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
see some things. I'm like, oh, I can tell that she's trying to hit a headlock, like he don't want to go neutral with her or whatever.
Yep.
But something I've noticed with coaching girls, because I coach junior high boys and then I coach junior high girls this season, girls are a lot more of thinkers
Hmm.
in the matches. And I multiple times this year I'm like, you can go top or neutral, you pick. And and it's like or I like they look at me for decision and I was like, what do you want? And
Yep.
I just, I never thought I'd be the coach that would do that, but I also, I came from a boys program. I came from guys or like my coaches all coached boys, and I'm kind of a little bit in uncharted territory. I am a girl,
Hmm.
but a lot of like I grew up on a boys team and it's very different. It's almost not a completely different sport, but it's really really different to coach
It
girls.
is. It's
Yeah.
very different. I'll never go back to boys, because I think it's too much fun. Uh, from
Girls are
my
better
end, from
listeners for sure.
they are for sure better listeners. Sometimes they have a better attitude, or their attitude can be a little interesting too. But girls get down on themselves really quickly.
Mhm.
I've noticed especially from my early days of coaching that I'm very positive oriented. Not that we try not to use negative terms at all,
Yeah.
and stuff because girls take that to heart. And I've heard coaches say, "Oh, you just got to coach them the same." But I know enough of the girls really well that they'll tell me, "Well, I'll go home and I'll think about what you said for like 3 days or 4 days or a week or 2 months later. I'm still remembering you tell me that whatever." Like, crap, what I say matters more so. With
Yeah.
boys, sometimes you can tear them down a little bit and they'll react to like, no, screw you. I'm going to do it. You, you,
Hmm.
you make them mad, but sometimes you say those same things to a girl and it's like, oh, I just destroyed her.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't seem like it at the time, but you know,
I I coach boys and girls completely differently, to be fair. Like you're exactly right. There are some kids where I'm like, you like boys, yeah, I can yell at and be in or not that I can't yell at girls, but like sometimes girls are already beating themselves up enough.
hmm.
So
Yeah.
I need to be the positive force. Boys are like, whatever, and I have to be the one that's like, no, like you lost that point or that match by 1 point. Like, what are we doing? We need to work harder in the practice room. It's unless I feel like unless you've coached both, it's a really unique experience to see the dynamic between the
Yeah.
two.
And do you think you can be harder on the girls than, um, say, your fiance
I
because
yeah,
you're a girl?
I think I am a little bit. I think I am harder on them. Yeah, like one of my first coaching positions, I actually my fiance is the head girls high school girls track coach as well.
Hmm.
And so I helped him out one year as assistant coach and he's like, "Rachel, like it's okay." And I'm like, "Well, but I need to do this." And he's like, "It's okay. It's okay." I'm like, "Oh, okay, sorry." But like that also was I was straight off of coming from Hawkeye Wrestling Club and I you have to realize too, or I had to realize that I like I'm coaching at West Liberty, a small school in Iowa. Not every single one of these kids is gonna go do this sport in college
Yeah.
or gonna want to do it after college. The how I view sports is a lot different than how a lot of kids view sports. And yeah, like I sometimes you need to make it fun. It needs to be positive, and that's something I had to learn because I'm like, yeah, I don't need to run these kids in the ground like we're having a good season. I want them to love wrestling the way I love wrestling.
Yeah.
And if they come to me and they want more than that, we can do that. But
Yeah.
you know,
No, that's really good. Yeah, I until I really started realizing the statistics around college sports and between high school and college sports, I always was pushing towards college and stuff, but I realized that across the board, whatever sport, like 5% of the high school population actually plays college sports at any level.
yeah,
And then to go beyond college sports is like less than 1% of that.
yeah,
So it's like, wow, when you really put it in perspective, I'm coaching that 95% because those are the ones that need to get these lessons that I'm teaching and use them in life. That there's very few of
yeah,
them I do have some girls that are wrestling in college, but not probably any of them are going to be world team members, but it's, it is different perspective as a high school coach, to start
yeah.
realizing that, man, we're really just trying to prepare them to be good people.
Right. Well, and that's something I had to realize as a coach too, is like I was never, if you've ever watched me, like, if anyone's ever watched me wrestle, I am not a technician. I absolutely was not a technician, not
Hmm.
my strong suit at all. And what is nice is I do get to coach a lot of that extra stuff that like I was, like using leverage, feeling things, I get to show some of that, but like a kid will be like, "Hey, will you show me this?" And I'm like, "Oh, wait." Like when I first started, wait, let me look that up. I kind of forgot how to do that because I never hit it, but
Hmm.
that's something that's they're like, "Wait, like I what I love about it is I get to be really honest with them. They're like, "Wait, we know that you were really successful in wrestling and you never did this move." And I was like, "Well, that's the cool thing about wrestling is I'm gonna show you all of these different things. And depending on you as a wrestler, like you can add them to your toolbox or maybe you don't.
Yeah.
It's there you get to completely make your own arsenal of moves that you enjoy, that you're good at. And that's something I really love about it, but that I had to not every kid's going to wrestle like me and being able to coach, or not every kid's going to view it the same way I do.
Yeah.
And how every coach or every kid needs to be coached differently. It's something I'm still really I'm trying to work on too.
Yeah.
Because
Well, I'm so impressed by, well, like you mentioned, Alana, and then Allie Joe, yourself. There's so much we have such a need for you guys, to be coaching in women's wrestling. I see myself as I'm sitting here waiting and I'm asking every girl I know, hey, you need to come up to Northwest Iowa. I just told you you'd look great in orange and black, and I got a singlet right over here is why I point over there, you
yeah,
know, uh, Anna Sundel. I have she's getting out of school this year and she's in Fort Dodge, which is only about 45 minutes from us. I'm like, Anna, that would be great if you could come over here, and I know Anna because I Facebook stalked you and you had a practice with Anna sometime.
yeah,
So, but yeah, Anna, and she's like, well, I'm a auto mechanics major. I'm like, perfect. We have cars in Northwest Iowa. Perfect.
True.
That would be great. You can bring your sister too. It'd be fun. So
That's
I
awesome.
I I I look forward to the days when there's more coach yourself and the Alley Joes and the Atlantas and all of the ones that are coming up. And it's great to see. Speaking of that, have well, you coach with your fiance, so if there's any issues with the coaching, you rule the house anyway, I'm sure. So he's going to hear it. But um, every once in a while I'll talk to somebody, and I'm not going to give any names out, but they hear things as a female coach, like, like they're not thought of as a coach quite yet, and they might be the head coach. Have you experienced any of that, or?
Um, I I have a little bit, but not I don't know. It's not how much I kind of like I loved my high school experience, but there was a lot.
Mhm.
And I don't talk about it too much, but like there was a lot of uh things said about me when I was wrestling
I'm
boys.
sure.
But now, like, the main thing I actually get is we'll walk in somewhere and they'll be like, "Where's your coach?" And then they'll be like, "She's right there." He's like, "Oh, I thought you were one of the kids." And I'm like, "I'm gonna take that compliment for as long as I can get it." Uh,
Yeah.
I'm knocking on the door of 30, so I'm gonna take that compliment. But
Oh, you young pup you are.
well,
I'm.
and that's the other thing too is like I also reffed in Oklahoma when I was in
Mhm.
college. So I was a young woman reffing wrestling in, rural Oklahoma most of the time. And
Yeah.
that, I don't know, I've been in a lot of scenarios. So like there's been situations where I've like come up to the table to have talk about a call. And a lot of times they're like, you can kind of tell their attitude coming into it. And then
Hmm.
I'm like, no, listen to me. And then, I'll talk about, and they're like, oh, wait, yeah, I guess, I, I honestly, I view it a little bit as this is my opportunity to show people what I can do, what I know. I view it a
Uh-huh.
little bit as a challenge, which is I don't know if that's a good way to view it, but that's how I kind of get through, or I guess that's what I do with it. I That's the other thing too that I've really loved is being in West Liberty. It happened in Ballard where I just kind of became a part of the team. It's
Yep.
happened here at West Liberty too. Like I don't help out with the high school boys by the time high school girl practice gets done, like I'm hungry, I need to go home. I'm not really in the boys room often. But a lot of those boys I coached in junior high, and they're coming in the room and they're like, "Oh, hey, Miss Waters, I have a question for you. Can you show me this move?" And or, I'm the only girl in the junior high room or the only girl coaching at a junior high boys meet.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I don't even notice at all. But then I step back some days and I'm like, wait, oh, that is, but I think it's, you show up, you show them what you can do, and that's all you got. And then, show them that. And then if they want to judge you past that, then that's their own problem.
I think it's from just watching you guys coach, man, it's so awesome to see. It is really cool. I know you know Nadine, right?
Oh, I'd love
So
Nate.
yeah, Nadine, they started Women's Officials Network One and stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to Allie about this, and I think there might even be something. Is there a mentoring group that you girls are part of, or is there something that you should maybe start so those young coaches coming up get some advice from? I mean, you're doing an awesome job. I know Alana's doing an awesome job. Allie's doing an awesome job. I mean, I've learned so much from being around Allie Joe and Alana and stuff that I learned from you guys probably more than you ever learned from me. So it's really cool. I think it'd be a really cool idea if you guys did a mentoring group for young coaches.
That
Just
would
throwing
be
one more
actually,
thing.
I haven't thought about that. That is awesome. Yeah, no, that would be really cool. I mean, uh Fargo camp is kind of that.
Hmm.
If some of
Oh
those
yeah, like
coaches,
Casey's
that's
there
like I
too,
was
and
roommates with Allie.
uh-huh.
Yeah, Casey, like that's how I've gotten to know if I didn't know him before, that's where
Hmm.
or even if I did know them in high school days, like where I actually get to know them as a human, not
Yes.
just a oh, another girl that wrestles, cool.
Yeah,
But that's mainly where I've made those connections, but that actually is a really great idea to
I think
start.
I'll say something to some of the others, and you guys can get that going. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm actually curious to see what you're going to say on this next question, because of your experience growing up and what you did in college and the level you've been on, freestyle or folk style.
Ooh. Again, that's hard. Um, I I love the vibe of folk style. I love like the lessons it teaches.
Hmm.
Me personally, I would rather wrestle freestyle.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's like wrestling folk style, I feel like is a really, really good base for freestyle. You learn how to get out on bottom. It's I like the kind of the vibe of like you have to like try really hard. You have to grind.
Hmm.
Sounds a little bit more like finessey,
Yeah.
and maybe it's my age, but I would much rather wrestle a freestyle match than a folk style match right now. But like I have completely forgotten how to sprawl, so freestyle would be much better. But yeah, I think folk style is a really, really great base for or folk style is a good base for freestyle. Yeah, I don't, sorry, that's a non-answer. I sound like a
That's all
politician,
right. That's all right.
but
So we'll go ahead and be politicians about it. But so I was thinking the other day, there's always the argument we need to wrestle freestyle for the girls, and we just talked about the actual numbers, and so numbers wise, do we really need to for 5% of the population or maybe less than that? But then I started thinking about some of the things that have happened with officials this year in matches that I have seen. And I'm not going to say a name, I'm not going to say where it was. I had an official argue with me about last year's out of bounds rules and the points of contact being the shoulders. And I was like, sir, that's last year's rule. This year's 1 point of contact. And he argued, I did not get any
yeah.
recognition until afterwards when he talked to another official and stuff. So I'm sitting there thinking that's a very simple rule. Now let's
Mm-hmm.
take the subjectiveness of freestyle and throw
Mm.
that in a high school referee's hands because we know it's just going to be one official. It's not going to be three, you know,
Yeah. Well,
like, oh, I
well,
don't know if I want that.
and I was asked that question when it first was sanctioned. They're like, "Well, why didn't we do freestyle?" I'm like, "I know it was in the conversation, but that's the thing. To ref freestyle correctly, you need three refs because it is subjective.
Hmm.
And that's why you need three opinions on it. Two people need to agree for you to actually get the points. Like, that's why it's set up the way it's set up. You're right. Absolutely, we would not be able to get three, or we wouldn't be able to get eight officials for a junior high meet on a Tuesday night. Like, we're
Yeah.
not getting that. Like, but I agree too. The amount of times I had to scream locked hands or she doesn't have an arm on a headlock this year,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and those in like, and I get it. I ref too. I have made some mistakes,
Hmm.
absolutely. But it's, yeah, I totally agree. I think that we gotta stick with folk style. At
At
the
least for a
international
while,
level.
man.
Yeah.
Maybe as the next few groups of girls come out of, I say girls, women come out of college and stuff, and we have some more experience in the freestyle realm, maybe then we can start looking at it, but boy, man, I could only imagine some of these old guys, they can't even hardly get down to call the pin. I couldn't imagine them trying to referee a freestyle
It'd
match.
be, yeah, yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, it would, and there's freestyle rules also change. Like, I don't even know what the rules are now. Like,
Yeah.
they change so often too, and it's, well, what's actually really funny is quick sidebar story. Freestyle State a couple years ago, I went to work it and I had to officiate, and my boyfriend at the time, fiance now, he was with me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just watch wrestling like while you officiate." We didn't have an official, so he had to be a chairman
Uh-huh.
of the match, and he's like, "I'm just holding up what you hold up. I trust you." I was like, "Well, thanks." But like, this does, I mean, but that was a situation where, I mean, like that's awesome that he stepped up to like be that
Yep.
official, but he's not
He
qualified
didn't.
do
Yeah, he
that,
didn't know
you
either.
know?
I do like what they do at Iowa, the Freestyle State is having that officials clinic and getting
Yes.
people some real mat time experience. And I know they do it throughout the year,
Hmm.
trying to do that. We actually did it. Nadine actually did a officials clinic at our youth tournament because I had her for the whole weekend. So maybe think about this if you have a big weekend of wrestling. We had Saturday varsity tournament. Sunday was our little kids tournament, and then I did a JV tournament on Monday. And so we had six new
Nice.
officials, all female officials on Sunday.
That's
And
awesome.
Nadine sent them through the class, and then was able to sit and evaluate real time and stuff. So that was a really cool idea, really neat. And that's cool that you've officiated. I will not. I am not ever going to be an official. That's not my deal. I'm
It's
fine telling them they're wrong.
it's I just did youth, which
Hmm.
arguably is,
Harder.
yeah, it's harder and it's not at the same time, but
Yeah.
because you got parents that think it's, well, you have all the parents in the corner, which is not
Yep.
fun. And then
Yeah.
on top of that, they're just, I'm like, reversal, reversal. They're just rolling around too. So,
Yeah. Oh,
but
it's tough. Yeah, I every year before AAU state, I'll do a post, or and this year I think I'm going to do a video because people probably listen more than they do read about proper corner etiquette and going to the table, and we're not talking from the corners, and you're subject to the same rules as the high school coaches, those
mhm,
types of things, because it's tough, and
it
we got to
is.
be nice. We have to find a nice blend between being nice to the officials and making sure that we're heard too.
Well, and that's the hard spot too with, I'm not a big talker, yeller in the corner
Hmm.
in general, because I've had headgear on and I know you can't hear very well. So,
Yeah.
like certain things, you'll yell. So I'm just not a big yeller in the corner either. But there's a couple times where I wouldn't say yelled at officials, but like yelling so they can hear me, but like
Uh-huh.
saying things. But I'm like, there is a fine line where like I was like, I'm not gonna yell at officials because I was an official and it sucked. And so I'm
Hmm.
not gonna do that. But then also I have junior high girls that I see in my classroom every day, who I know really well, and their arm's about to be torn off because somebody's
Yep.
running a chicken wing the wrong way, like
Yeah.
illegally, and we're not calling it. And I'm like, and that's where my blood kind of starts to boil. And I'm like, you gotta call that because
Yeah.
there's a point where there's safety too,
Yeah.
where we
Their
gotta
their number
make sure
one
we're
job
on it.
is to protect the athlete. Number
Yeah,
one job of officials to make sure everybody walks off the mat all in one piece.
yeah.
So you're right, 100% on that. Um, if you got to go sit at the NFHS meeting and you could decide any rule change, you could decide anything you wanted to change about wrestling. Doesn't even have to be a rule. You are going to be making the Rachel Waters rule on wrestling. What are we changing, or what are we doing?
Hmm. If people don't get to the center fast enough, it's a stall warning. I don't know.
Ooh, man, you're tough.
I don't, that always bugged. I don't know. I always ran back to the middle, for psychological reasons, to be like, I'm not
Yeah,
tired. What are you doing? But when you see it's the kids like, you go out of bounds and they like sit there, they take a while, or they take a while to cover. That just always bothers me. So maybe a stall call for that.
man, you are tough. So here we'll go back to officials this because you're tough on stalling, and I wrestled enough in the central Iowa and eastern Iowa this year to know it was called for the most part properly.
Hmm.
Um, Anytime we go out of bounds without significant action, there should be a stall call. I mean, that's
Hmm.
actually the way the rules are, and that was
Yep, they're written
that
that way.
was yeah, that was the point of emphasis. Did you know in Northwest Iowa we didn't call stalling for going out of bounds hardly at all this year? And I received a warning from an official, not because I was arguing that my kid should. I was like, I don't care, call one of them.
Yeah.
I don't really care. Just call it, because when you get to regionals and state, they're gonna call it, and if you don't, you're ruining you're hurting our athletes.
Well, that's the thing. I have called stalling and locked hands and full Nelson and illegal headlock on my athletes. I have yelled at the ref to call my kid because
Yeah.
we're working hard in the room. I'm like, you can't do that. And
Hmm.
I mean, especially at the junior high level, but even at the high school level of girls right now, I know the officials didn't sign up for this, but part of their job is also to teach these girls how our sport works. You
Yeah.
know,
And
like,
if you don't call it, they don't realize you can't. And then,
yeah. And I
yeah.
I love the officials that take the time that, like, especially junior high, your knees need to be behind the line, or that
Hmm.
take the time when they call like a full Nelson, they're like, oh, like, you can't have your hand. I love those officials that take that time to, like, explain that to my
Yeah.
to the
We
kids.
got some good ones. I mean, I don't want to complain about every official in Northwest Iowa, but we're lacking numbers and we are actually aging out of a lot of officials. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We'll find some new ones, of course.
Yeah.
Um, so I know there's probably a lot of girls, and you probably don't want to hear this, but there's a lot of girls that look up to you as far as a wrestler. Who is somebody that you looked up to?
Um, so I guess I would say, I don't this is a deep cut reference, Iowa State wrestling, Jerome Ward.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of people are not super familiar with that name. But the way he wrestled and the way I wrestle are or wrestled are were very, very similar. And I hate to say this, but you could just tell that he dealt with a lot of stuff, like, in between the ears.
uh-huh.
And there were some matches where he'd go out and he would just kill it. Like, he looked like he was placing at the national tournament. And then there's
Hmm.
some matches where it was just that not even the same person out there. And I struggled with that a lot. Um, so he was kind of someone that I looked up to. I'm like, okay, this is someone that is dealing with the same, like, mental side of wrestling that I am. And as a kid going to duels, I'm like, wow, like, that's human. And
Yeah,
so he was someone that I really looked up to. Other than that, would like, my coaches at Ballard too.
yeah.
Nick Britton, Steve Michelson.
Good
Yeah,
guys. I've talked to them before. I've actually talked to them about you before. So yeah, great
they're
guys.
yeah, they're awesome, awesome people. But yeah, I guess that would be the main ones. I mean, obviously, as any kid that's interested in wrestling, I watched on YouTube. I'd watch Kale Sanderson and Kerry Kalat, all of
Hmm.
those things too. But Jerome Ward was definitely the one where I was like, okay, like, this guy gets me, even though he has no idea who I am. So
Yeah, no, that's cool. I give my girls because I think it's important. I think about myself like when I was growing up playing baseball and football, we'd watch it on TV and then we'd go out and play it. So we emulated stuff. So I know it's important to watch wrestling. So I will give girls a list of names, and you're on there. Rachel Waters, Felicity Taylor, watch Helen Maroulis, of course. You got to watch Helen. Sarah Hildebrandt is probably one of my favorites. Just
yeah,
and it's not because of her wrestling; it's because of her interviews are always fun. She's a fun
she's a
person.
great human. I love
Yeah,
Sarah.
I think that's one question I did ask Emma Randall at one of the camps. I said, okay, the women and most of the guys on the U.S. World Team ask some of the greatest or answer the questions better than anybody else. They're super at that. I said, do they take a class on media? And she's like, no, that's genuinely who these people are. They're just
Yeah.
really good people. So yeah,
That's
it's cool that
uh
we have.
weird story. After my national championship, there's an interview, and I don't know why, but when you look up my name, it's one of the first videos that pop up. So I have a group of students who apparently on their off time watch my interviews, and then when I ask
Uh-huh.
them a question, they will quote me to me. I'm like, I don't know how to give you detention for that, but I'm gonna figure it out because not cool, guys.
I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm gonna watch that video. Very cool. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and yep, we did. We've hit the over the hour and a half mark. So
No
I'm
worries.
gonna go ahead and say, why don't you give us just a few final thoughts? It can be whatever you'd like. Maybe the growth of wrestling, maybe not. Maybe it has nothing to do with wrestling, but just your final thoughts for the evening.
I guess my final thoughts would be that I love how much wrestling has come, and I especially love it because when I look back at pictures of me wrestling, I have basically a swim cap on, and I had to wear sleeveless Under Armour underneath, and none of my pictures are cool. So I'm really glad that girls wrestling is where it's at now, where they have cool pictures when they win
Hmm.
matches, because I do
Oh
not have
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah. The cap, man. I almost forget about those until I watch East Buck and Destiny Crumb still wears her hat or her
Yep.
cap. And I know it's to keep the hair out of her eyes, but but I know 99.99% of all the girls were very happy to get rid of that cap.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, right before that happened, I think I bought 10 brand new caps that summer, so I knew everybody would have one because I knew our team was going to be bigger. So that was money not well spent.
Hey.
Oh
It
well.
is
Well,
what it is.
thank you very very much for coming on here. It's been really fun doing these interviews and stuff, and you'll get to see it on IA Wrestle now. Tony's putting them on IA Wrestle, so all kinds of fun cool things there. So I'm
Awesome.
gonna
Well,
hit
thanks
the
for having
stop.
me.
No, you bet. I will hit stop and hold on for just a second,
All
and
right.
we'll talk.